everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Another Monday night. We are all back in action over here. The trio is back. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin, over here in Chicago. It's supposed to be hot as hell today. It is not yet. So I think we dodged the bullet, but it's supposed to be a high 80s and stuff like that. But whatever. Here comes freaking summer. Enjoyed the Chicagoland spring of 3.5 days, and those are gone now. So bring on the freaking heat. Gally is with us. Gally, what's happening?
Hanging in there. Long ass Mondays start at 4:30 in the morning on the East Coast when you wake up to go to work, which is just stupid, and no one should have to do that. But I'm exactly that, stupid and employed.
Stupid. Bickler is here as well. What's happening, Bickler?
Well, I was just going to mention, you said that you wanted to bring the heat, and that's why I'm here. I'm here just for the sex appeal of the show. So I appreciate you bringing me in and make sure that our ratings stay up.
Well, since you started with that, I was going to go to the trivia. But obviously with the weekends, there's no games now. We don't know what to do with ourselves. So there's a lot of goofiness happening on our Discord server. And if you're not on there, you should definitely hop on there.
Oof.
Oh, I have a song to play too. Let's not forget that. But we'll come to that. But since you mentioned, the heat that you bring,
this better not have anything to do with Ireland. That's all I'm going to say.
Nope, it's even worse. So I think Anand basically answered us in there, and this is what ChatGPT came up with us without doing any adjustments over here. I don't know what's worse. I look like Papa Smurf, but not blue. Bickler looks even more like a porn star from the 70s than he could. And Gally looks like he could be one of our kids. It's like, bring your kids to work day.
I was going to say, the most uncomfortable part of that whole picture is that because it makes all three of us have the exact same eyes, we look like we could have a deranged separate father. Like, it's one father, and like nobody knew. Like, we all show up at one of those like, who is the father things, and they're like, you all have different moms. But guess what?
At least in that photo, at least we have an accountant on the team by the looks of Gally. You know what I mean? That's like a lifelong accountant look there.
Yeah, it looks extremely young on this one. He does look the youngest out of all of us. It's the whole constantly smooth shaven thing. But I think our main theory was that you look like a character from Bob the Builder. What's his name?
No, it's Bob Burgers. He literally looks like the main character from Bob.
That's what he looks
Burgers. Like, and that guy did pretty well for himself when you see the chick that he hooks up with in the show. So, but he still has a 70s porn star mustache. So it was something that made me laugh exactly. Yes.
So funny enough, I have a side profile picture of me matching a side profile picture of this guy that somebody sent me. And I have to get this to you guys now. I have no choice.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun, and then honestly, then I got introduced to the ChatGPT Plus world, and it's been dangerous. The stuff I've done, and then we've been sending back and forth with my brother. To be honest with you, is extremely dangerous in more ways than one. By the way, it's a ridiculous time killer for one, and it can probably get us in a lot of trouble in different ways for another. But. The most important, since we're having fun, right? Might as well do this. I'm just playing the regular one. I'm sitting in dance song, and we really need kind of got way for that. We didn't want to kind of like go overboard last week. Obviously, it was kind of like a mixed emotions kind of a week with the trophy, the parade, but obviously what happened after the parade and stuff like that. But I definitely want to make sure you guys listen and dance too. I do want Bickler dancing to this. That will make my week complete over here. All right, here we go. And I need quick answers on this because I know the comments, and turn your comments off, is going to be ugly pretty fast. Okay, so Liverpool won the league by 10-point margin over Arsenal. You would think it would have been, it looked like it could have been like 30 at one point, but obviously we slacked towards the end. 10-point leads. By how many points did Liverpool win the 1920 league championship over Manchester City. Bickler. No time wasting. No passing in the back, giving it back to the goalie, all that kind of stuff.
I don't remember. 14 points.
Galley.
Is this 1920?
Yeah, it is.
The only other time we won the Premier League. But yeah, sure, go ahead.
12.
18. 99 points to 81. Yes, I was actually shocked to see that too. You guys, we even got the answer before Sergi could Google that answer in there. But yes, it was 18 points last time we won the title in 1920. And that 18-point difference is tied second for the highest. Tied with
Manchester City?
No, United actually over Arsenal.
Yeah.
1999, 2000. What is the biggest differential for the league title?
That's got to be
league?
What was that? I'm sorry?
In any league?
For the league. No, for the top league.
It's gotta be 17-18. City walked the league that year. I don't remember by how many. I just remember they just like smoked everybody.
Well, is it 20?
More than 18.
Is it 21?
It's actually 19 points. They had 100 to 81 of Manchester United over there. So, yeah, it looks. You know what? Is this the referee version? Or
Don't
delivering packages version?
Don't do that to Galley. Don't do that.
Well, it's just it's just a. I mean,
that's the all white people look the same.
I want to be real. All of us do look like we're doing cocaine. So to be fair,
I don't know. Listen, I would be much thinner. I would hope.
Exactly. I was gonna say I would not have.
But I'm the only one who looks thin and young.
Yeah, the cartoon version does look like it. Okay, so let's get to the transfer stuff, Liverpool stuff. We'll come back and dance later on. I do want to definitely play the song sometime this evening. But let's start with the outgoings, and then we'll kind of come back. Obviously, since we were on air, the Frimpong thing is approved and all that kind of stuff. I'll say Kelleher, and then we'll probably talk about that for the next 3 hours. And then, we'll start the 24-hour podathon right here. If you're in our Discord channel, there were like hours and hours of talks about a backup goalkeeper. I don't think the last time we talked about a sale of a backup goalkeeper, it was more than 3 sentences. But, Bickler by himself causing trouble, and then people getting...
Susie said I was the least controversial person on Discord, and I took offense to that. So I had to...
Right. I had to prove him wrong.
So... I'll be honest, I was one of those who there we go. I swear it was like a calling. He sensed the disturbance in the force, and there's Jamie. There you go.
I'm glad that I live in the same town as Jamie, so I can go to his house and knock on the door. It'll only take me 2 weeks before he answers.
So I'm not going to go into that side too much because God knows we went into it more than we did. I'll be honest, though. In Jamie's defense, I thought because of last year, what he did last year. Before that, I can understand. We held out for the 25-30 last year, right? I think the consensus is we did not get as much, Galley, because there's 1 year left on the contract. Like, we're not in a good negotiating situation. There's 1 year left on the contract. Everybody in the world knows he wants to go somewhere where he's going to start. So there's no way he's really starting. We already have another goalie that's coming in. So there's a lot of reasons that doesn't put us in a good situation. But I thought, obviously we wanted the 25-30 last year. We didn't get it. And we were probably playing harder to get because we didn't need him at the time. I thought because of the amount of time he played this year, because he did put like a regular, it wasn't like all league experience. Ali's out for 2 weeks kind of thing. He did about like almost 2 months. He was the goalie. I really thought that would kind of increase his value. Do you think we sold him too early and didn't work the markets a little bit? Or this is what we're going to get and we should be happy with it anyway?
I think that there's a unique thing about this transfer window with this June 1st to June 10th period, right? Mm-hmm. And I think if you're a team that has a guaranteed 12 to 18 million dollar option for a guy you might value between 18 and 25, but you're guaranteed to get it right now before the carousel happens and teams start moving guys, and you have to wait till July 1st to make that move to bring more funds in when you're trying to spend the most money anyone in England's ever spent on a player. I think they're so smart, they took the bird in hand. I think we hoped 4 different teams would come in between June 1st and June 2nd to make this deal a little bit more enticing. And from all reports, it was Leeds and it was Brentford. And my bet is Brentford was making the better offer because they're a established Premier League team. It made more sense for Kelleher to go. And I think he jumped at the first opportunity. So I'm actually really happy for all parties involved. I wish we had maybe played a little more hardball last year. But they wanted to let Mamardashvili spend the season on loan in Spain and kind of get his mind ready to come to Liverpool. And it seems kind of from his comments he has, at least speaking. But I like what they did here. I think it was good for all parties. And Flecken is going to Bayern Leverkusen for $9 million. And he's a more established number 1 keeper at this point in his career. And I think Leverkusen would prefer him at this point. But a Premier League side can spend more. So they met Liverpool's kind of larger price. Like, I think we're going to see keepers continue to go for less money. I mean, Juan Garcia or Joan Garcia is going to go to Barcelona for 25 million. And he's going to go on to become one of the best goalkeepers in the world.
He was like one of the hottest ones, like that's
kind of what I meant.
Market kind of thing, yeah. I mean, Jamie says feels like we said, we would stand in his way whatsoever, and like we wouldn't stand in his way, and I think that was probably part of it that we did say, you know what, we'll take care of you because you've been good to us, we'll be good to you, kind of thing, and that's fair. I think the whole Brentford thing. Maybe like you're right. Maybe Leeds gave a couple more million, but it is a lot better move, I think, for him. I mean, we talked several times about the up and downs of the Championship, the Premier League and stuff. And this could be a step for him if he's ever going to be that goalie. I mean, he's still really young for a goalie, so he can get another big move. Let's say like 2-3 years from now. I mean, Dara says we gave him away. I don't know necessarily we gave him away, but Victor, let me ask you this, because based on going off of what Gally was saying, and I do agree, like you kind of like finish the business, probably more for Kelleher than for Liverpool. I think you kind of finish the business, take the money and walk, because I know the rotation, the carousel that Gally is starting. Do you think it was too risky for Liverpool to say, you know what, we'll wait till the music stops and see who's left standing, and then they will pay 20-25 for him instead? It's just a risk that they didn't want to take?
Well, I mean, like we've talked about Kelleher potentially moving for 3 years now. I mean, it's been very clear that he's wanted to have more starting football, more opportunities, because he really wants to hold that number 1 spot down for Ireland in the national side, right? So for me, it's like we've listened to offers for multiple years now, and the teams interested have been West Ham, Brentford, Leeds. Like, I think there's multiple things happening. I think if he was good enough to get the money that, that 25 to 30 million, it would have happened prior to this year. I think 18 million with a year left on his contract is probably a steal for us. I think that's good money for us, given the fact he's only got 1 year left. I just don't know that there's as much interest as we want to think there is in him. And I think the other thing that happens is I think we're seeing the opposite of what we saw with the central defensive market 2 years ago, when all of those guys were coming through, when it was Enzo and Tchouaméni, and all of those guys were coming at like $60 to $100 million for a player. Like elite CDMs were getting huge money. I think we're seeing a market dip in keepers in general. The one with the highest valuation, third-party valuation right now is Costa Porto for $40 million. Like, people are valuing Courtois at $25 million right now. Like, the market's not there for that. The one of the top evaluated ones,
by the way, is it because of people like Kepa and stuff, like, really like burning some people's mouths, so you kind of like blow on it first before you drink it?
I honestly tell you, I'll tell you what it is. I think that there are so few keepers that can potentially actually gain you points in matches now, and people are putting it in other areas. People are paying over the top for pace up top, and they're paying over the top for elite defensive help. And I think it's just the positional value has gone down because there's so few goalkeepers that actually are difference makers. And I think Alisson's one of those. If you look at the top 10 valuated keepers, guess who's in there? Hint, it's a keeper that we bought last year. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I think we're doing the right things and we're making the right moves. And I don't think we spent the kind of money we did on Mamardashvili for him to be a backup or to loan him back out. I think he is a true succession plan for Ali. I think he sits this year and then we see an immediate takeover here. But I do think Ali is one of the few keepers, and he proved it this year, that can actually win you points. I just don't think there are enough of them out there.
Yeah, I think the issue becomes, obviously, like fans are a lot more familiar with Kelleher. I think like somebody was saying yes, Onana is a difference maker in a negative way, but he does make a difference. But we are used to Kelleher, and he's given so much, and there's a whole confidence of not a lot of teams can say, oh, like the top keeper is out, but it's not the end of the world. It's not, nobody's going to be as good, but we're in good shape. A lot of teams, if they lost their first goalie, would fall out of the title race and all that kind of stuff. But there's the comfort of that. I think, not knowing what Mamardashvili will do, we feel like, hey, we should stick to this guy that we know. But at the same time, Gally, based on his track records, that's not something Kelleher wants to do anymore. He wants to go be a starter. So this is more than what fans want, what Liverpool wants. It's a lot of what Kelleher wants in terms of going somewhere else. Even if he got paid, doesn't matter, because it's not like wages or anything like that. It's a matter of him getting the opportunity to start and probably in his mind, ideally, take the next step back up.
People talk about clubs being ruthless all the time. And I think we've talked about it on this podcast on Monday nights about not being ruthless enough at times and forcing players out of clubs that won't sign contracts. I think there's also something about clubs being like open-minded and showing future players that might sign with them. Like, we won't stand in front of your career, whether you're Kelleher on his way, deserving his time to get to play, whether you're Harvey Elliott wanting to go somewhere and play, or maybe you're a guy who wants to dig in and fight and stick around and not get vilified. And I think you do that as both a club and a supporters base by supporting that player fighting for their spot in your side, even if you tried to usher him out the door, right? I think in some ways that was kind of Nunez last year. Like, he said, I want to stick around. And some people were like, we wish you said you wanted to go. Now we all just know you should go. But I think to me, that's the bigger kind of sentiment here, is that the player knew he needed to play and the club recognized it and shows future players and future prospective players that might come in. This club understands this business and how you support the players in the club. And I think that's a really important thing that sometimes gets overlooked in good management compared to like guys who kind of feel like they're going against the club, like maybe at a place like Chelsea where you just get signed and loaned out and you're more of a commodity than you are like an actual person.
And I think that goes to, like Dara is saying, it's good for Kelleher, but not for us. But there are times where what's really, really good for us might be bad for Kelleher. And it goes back to what you're saying, Gally, then it's harder to recruit, especially young players. If you know it's going to be a dead end or it's not going to work out, and you're going to be kind of like pushed around and like, treated like a commodity. I guess my only thing then is, on the flip side of things, when we look at it, Bigler, we're talking about the diminishing values and the dollars for goalies. Is it possible that we maybe overpaid for Mamardashvili based on
it's certainly possible, right? But I think if you're going to overpay, you're willing to overpay for somebody that you expect to be at this club for 4 to 8 years, right? A decade. It's a goalkeeper, right? So like, I don't think you mind that. I'm curious to like, good for Kelleher, bad for us. I'm curious. I want to like poke that a little bit, you guys, because like what's the negative? Like, what's bad about selling your backup keeper for nearly £20 million?
Well, I think he means in terms of like the amounts we got, that we didn't play hardball and we didn't.
It's a year left on a contract for a backup goalkeeper. Like, that's good.
He has 25 Premier League appearances, and I understand he played in a lot of cup games, FA Cup matches, and if it wasn't for kicking a penalty kick in a huge ass match when the other keeper couldn't make his, like, I think some of this like whole legend that was built off of winning that cup final, which was pretty epic, and he deserved it. He has 8 clean sheets and 25 starts, playing at one of the best 5 defenses that have played in the Premier League since the day he made his debut. I'm not sure his numbers look so great over 25 starts if he was the backup keeper, if he played at Leicester, West Ham, or any of these other clubs we've talked about in the past. This isn't a criticism of him, but his performance and what we believe he's on is because he's played at one of the best clubs in the world this whole time. And that's a huge factor. I don't want to go there because I don't want to make it that conversation. I just think this is great for all parties. I think we put a guy in the shop window. He did so well. We could have sold him 2 years ago, but it wasn't worth it to us as a club at that time. So we kept him so we were covered because we have a keeper who gets injured when he kicks the ball with the outside of his foot. And it was smart to do it. And we won a league this year, I think, because we had a really good backup keeper. But in the other game where he couldn't play, the other backup keeper came in and we kept a clean sheet because he has the best defense in the league in front of him.
Yeah, and I don't want to go into my personal feelings or evaluations on a player.
Yes,
I just think when we for the safety of everybody involved, right?
Or
I
views.
want to be realistic about what we're talking about here. And I just think that what we're expecting to get from Kelleher isn't rooted in actual facts. It's rooted in our feelings on the player. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me that we would think that we would get 30, 35 million for him, and certainly not with a year left on the contract.
And I think, Dara's like worried about the replay. The issue is, I think Jim was saying earlier, not a lot of teams, I said it even earlier, not a lot of teams are going to have 1 and 1A. It's just not in the finances. And because the 1A is going to want to go to a different club and play there. And that's what happened with Kelleher. And I guess like the biggest argument is people talking about, maybe being like, if we did it last year or the year before, like you were saying, Gally, maybe you get 25, 30, 35 or whatever for him. But then in return, maybe you don't win the title this year because now you're on somebody unreliable. So that's like a trade-off that I think, I agree with Gally. It's kind of like good for everybody. Would it have been nicer to get more? Yeah, but obviously it's not in the market. It's not like there are people going around saying like, we'll give 30, we'll give 35, and Liverpool is like, nope, he's going to 18 for Brentford. It's whatever. Sometimes the market dictates what the team gets, and you're not going to hold them back because they're not giving you 22 million or something like that, because that's not fair on Kelleher, and you have to understand like the big picture of things. So I don't know. At the end of the day, I think, like I say, I personally thought maybe we could get away with more, just because he got to play a lot this year and a lot more teams saw him, and I can see a lot of clubs who would have a need for him. But the market is the market. They're like, Chelsea has 7 goalkeepers they're trying to sell, so I guess those teams could go for like one of those guys as well. So there's always that. Let's go about another possible outgoing. So we actually do have this poll right now on our YouTube page. So if you're following us on YouTube, you can go to the post and like put your vote in right now. So it is 59 votes right now. I think the biggest thing over here, Bickler, was the money involved. I think if we just said, would you be okay with selling with Diaz on the poll, I would assume it's going to be a lot more no's than yeses. But at this price, maybe except John on Wednesday morning, but most people would be like, no. But at this price, it feels like, are you actually shocked that 34% even at that price says
yes?
No.
Yes, I am. You're talking about a player whose game is predicated on pace, who's nearing 30 years old, getting offered 72 million. Yes, I am surprised that more people aren't on that. I think that's Like, if you offered me that deal, I rip your hand off, and then kiss you on the cheek and give you the player. I mean, it's I think that you would be dumb to turn that down, and I think it's a good move for Diaz as well. I think I feel the same way about the Kelleher deal. I think both deals are best for player and club.
How about you, Gally? I mean, it looks like it's going to happen. Nothing is official, but based on Instagram posts and all that kind of stuff, and obviously the offers are there, it feels like it's going to happen. And ultimately, it sounds like another, like Bickler says, it's another good deal for all parties involved. He's leaving a title winner, won the title, got the trophy, and now he's going to be, banking in his final years over here.
Yeah. I mean, in the words of Stan Collymore, when the Phil Coutinho $142 million offer from Barcelona came, he was on Sirius XM and it came in live, and he actually swore on air, and he said, I'd drive to his house, I'd handcuff him just so I knew he had to sign the contract. It was basically like, you have to say yes, because it's great for everyone. And do you guys realize that Luis Diaz is paid less than like Simicast right now per week? Like, he is so underpaid, maybe the most underpaid. He's 28 years old and he came from the Portuguese league. You know what that means? He's been underpaid for every minute of his entire professional career. He had his father kidnapped, and we never poked fun at it until some people did. We didn't poke fun at it until his dad kind of became a meme of himself, trying to pimp him out to every other club while standing in like Liverpool, like using the Liverpool media to do it. So like we were really good about that, but like you could kind of understand why. So if this guy can go, and they're saying he's like the third or fourth highest person on the Saudi wish list for this transfer window, which means he's going to get like $400,000 to $500,000 a week, and he's making like 40 grand, 60 grand a week right now in England. Like, that changes like generations of families, and it's his last shot too because he's older. So I think it helps everyone. It helps Liverpool. It helps the player. I'd wish him so well. And I think you saw from his partner, he's already looking at high rises in the Middle East. Like, there's no more rainy days in Northwest England.
It's a good way. I mean, in some ways, for a player, I think, especially at his age, it's a good way to go out. It's like, I won it. Now I can go bank because I'm going to probably retire in 2 to 3 years. Jamie says, and he's starting, now you're starting trouble. If Diaz was the most available, I'll have my buddy Ace come into the Discord. He's Colombian, and then you guys can fight out over that one. But no, I honestly think Diaz is one of the guys Diaz has become the Gomez of the attacking force, where he gets, I feel like, over criticized for a guy who pretty much played out of position for most of the season because Gakpo would not or could not. I don't know which one. I think he gets way too much criticism, and there have been so many games that we have said that he was our only attacking threat, and everything was coming through him. And I think, I really feel like Mo will miss him as well, because I think he was the only other guy who kind of put a scare who would go direct at players. Hopefully, Wirtz will be that guy now, but we are all content and okay with the price tag being.
Gordon's coming.
What is?
I said Gordon's coming, and he is extremely direct from the left.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys think that's a possibility?
I didn't mean to derail. I just
no, that's fine. Throw it out there. Do you guys think that's?
I think it's legit
for them to go after, that's a discussion to be had actually, because I'm a little confused even with Wirtz coming in, because we don't know. We're kind of like all speculating in terms of how we're going to play. We'll talk about Frimpong a little bit and stuff, and Kerkez possibly incoming, but. What will they do up top? Because we know Nunez is not gonna, or I hope at least Nunez is not gonna stick around. I don't see why, like Dara says, Newcastle would sell him, but I mean, I would be more than happy but I just don't see why Newcastle would sell him, or he would be. I mean, if it was an even swap, we would take it, right, Bickler? If it was like 80, take the money.
Yeah, for sure.
Give it
That's my main thing is like, is Newcastle going to be able to get in enough to like basically make selling him make sense for that side? I'm not sure they will. But I mean, he would be an instant upgrade on that channel, on that side. I would see that as a great move. Like my main thing was like the thing with Diaz leaving that makes me nervous is that writes Gakpo into that spot. And I just don't think we've seen the consistency from an effort standpoint or a quality standpoint from Gakpo. I say that, and then in preparation for the show, I'm looking over stuff, and Gakpo's literally like the second highest goal scorer with 18 goals this year. And I was just like, it like shocked me because like it doesn't really line up with like my feeling from Gakpo over the season, but it just goes to show you how much quality he really has there. So if Slot can develop it and get it out of him the same way he kind of developed and got what he needed out of Gravenberch this year, then like who knows? But I do think with Gakpo, he's very much likes to float inside. He very much likes to play with his back towards goal, which is very different than what we see or need from that side. If we're going to make it so that Mo isn't consistently on an island, we have to have another attacker that takes people on and scares people with pace.
I mean, I think the feeling, because I had the same feeling with Gakpo, like his stats are like, you're like, really? Because I think it's like, we talked about this before. It's like feast or famine with Gakpo. Like he's going to be on and it's going to be that game, but then you're going to have 2 games where you're going to be like, oh, Gakpo is playing. Like you're not going to, like he's going to be very timid. He's going to be taken out in the 55th, 60th minutes, and he's going to be very ineffective until, like Diaz goes to the left and stuff like that. And like, somebody comes to the middle like Jota or somebody. I feel like that's the only thing that scares me with Gakpo, because I'm in this mode now where a game starts within like the first 5 minutes. You can kind of tell which Gakpo you're getting that day. Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, we're getting the good Gakpo. And honestly, not even that day, that half, because that can kind of go away the second half. He suddenly disappears. Or sometimes he's invisible the first half. The second half, he starts. You're like, oh, Gakpo is back, kind of a deal. I guess that's my only fear when it comes to Gakpo. By the way, if you're watching us live, I always forget to say this on YouTube, but do hit that thumbs up button. If you have not subscribed to the channel, do that as well. Any of those buttons down there except the thumbs down is appreciated, because if you get the thumbs up, some poor soul who's never exposed to this comedy will get to see this as well. Kevin says, keep Diaz. The EPL needs more Colombians. The golden question to you, Gally, do you think is a possibility? Or if Diaz is gone and Nunez is gone, what do you think the incomings will look like position-wise for the front?
So I'll answer your first question. I think it absolutely is possible because the guy had a medical scheduled last year while on international duty with England to sign for Liverpool after Edwards and Hughes were in charge. So it lets you know that they register a like in the player. And if there's anything about Edwards, he follows players from like early in their careers, which is why people tried to link us with Rodrigo. Because people, if you guys remember, and I know it was a long time ago, but in like 17, 18, when Rodrigo was being linked with Real Madrid, he was actually linked with us. Like we were, when he was at Santos, we were his number one. And supposedly we were the number one, like he's the number one prospect in the history of FSG's like ranking scale of young players. He's the biggest. No, he's their Kobe Bryant. Like he's what everybody wanted and knew when they were like young and elite. That was what Michael Edwards wanted. So like if that player was available, they'd go get him today. And I believe that's kind of what we're looking at here and why Gordon is still something that they're kind of enamored with. Because, first of all, the guy comes in, he is immediately your starting left-handed attacker because he's better than Cody Gakpo today, and he's coming in to replace Luis Diaz. Number 2, he can play through the center if you need him to as a false 9 or a straight center forward. Oh, and by the way, he's your best backup right wing the day he signs.
Yeah.
Like, he's your best player outside Mo Salah at all 3 positions across the front. So as an example, it just makes total sense. He's from the city. He loves the club. It would, everything would come together if it happened. I don't know that it will, because Newcastle might play hardball, but they might have a choice to give Isak a lot of money and sign other players and not commit to two different players at the same time. And this also could be the way, the wink wink thing we did after we sold Coutinho. Like, this could be one of those, like, they sign Anthony Gordon this summer because Newcastle doesn't want to give him up, and Liverpool promises they're not coming in for Isak or Guimaraes or Livramento or Lewis Hall or any of the other players in the next 2 to 3 windows. Like, these clubs do that kind of stuff. So I think Gordon could be the big surprise of this summer, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. I just don't know if Newcastle. I think that's like the biggest thing. I think, I mean, anybody who says, I know, like, because he was on Everton and he was very, especially in his Everton days, he was very easy to dislike the whole diving and stuff like that, especially more than like just wearing an Everton jersey. The whole diving thing was just like obnoxious. He has, I mean, the recent times I watched him, kind of like that has, because I mean, to the point where the entire league knew he was like Sterling 2.0 in terms of like just like suddenly collapsing the moment he went into the box, kind of a deal. I think he's kind of worked that out of his game. So I think as a player, I don't see a lot of people like saying, like, oh no, I wouldn't want him. I think it's just a matter of, will Newcastle be willing to kind of like give him up? Let's talk about this, because I know Brian, because I think Sir Z was saying earlier, I mean, all talks, Bickler, about Wirtz, who with the second offer just got rejected. But I really do think, or maybe hope, we do have the BS meter going on for Kerkez right now. We'll probably have the worst one out there next in terms of how likely it is. But I do think it's more like a negotiating thing, that it is going to happen at the end. But Bickler, it sounds like, as the reason he rejected Bayern, and like it's all Liverpool for him, is the fact that what he's going to play tactically, which seems to be a number 10. Or do you think Slot would have sold him like, dude, you know what you are? You're like the next Bobby, kind of a thing, and have him play at the 9? Or, he's like, here, Soboslai is going to run next to you like crazy, win the ball, and then you can do whatever the hell you want, kind of a sales pitch.
Yeah, I think there's two possibilities. Mm-hmm. Like, he's played all over the left side as an attacking player. So if you were to get rid of Diaz, you're going to say, hey, we're going to pair you up top with Mo, essentially in what ends up being in possession, looking like a 3-5-2. I think he'd be all over that. I think he'd be great at it. If you're asking me to bet on this as to what happened as a conversation, my bet is it does look like something like a 10 roll for him, like a free roll 10. But, I think it was Brian who brought up false 9, Bobby talk. I don't know that we're ever going to get another Bobby in terms of how that functions. I think when you look at Wirtz, I think if you're looking at him playing, this is another one of those conversations. Is it right wing back or a fullback, right? Yeah. I think for me, this looks like a 10, because what happens in possession, if you go in possession with 3 at the back and you have overlapping, let's say we have Kerkez and Frimpong, and you're using them as your wide pace, you're essentially going to use him as a recessed 10 that looks like a false 9 at times, depending on where you're at. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because you give him the ability to free roam in that middle, see those passes that he sees that nobody else sees, and sort of thread that midfield together with those front 2 attackers. And I think that does a number of things. I think it allows, let's say you're using a Gakpo, you're pushing Gakpo more into a central role, into almost like an off striker forward, which he's very, very good at. The other thing you're doing is you're nullifying Mo's waning pace. Like, he's still got it, right? But he doesn't have that elite top end pace that he used to have, where you could just push it over the top, put him on an island, put him one-on-one. People aren't scared of that anymore, and they're playing him inside now. So you're pushing him inside, and you're using Frimpong as that sort of outside pace to scare people. I think it solves a lot and makes a lot of sense with the pieces. If you're asking me to bet on what that conversation looked like, to me it probably looked like that. Like, hey, we're going to use you in the 10. This is where you're gonna roam, and then these are the pieces around it.
Okay, before I go to Gally, let me ask you that: does size concern you in that setup?
In the 10?
No, attacking wise, in terms of what you're putting out there, in size. You got Frimpong on one
No.
side. I mean, sure, you have a lot of pace out there, like ridiculous pace out there, but you don't really, aside from Gakpo, you really have no size up in the air.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that, right? So, like, where do you need size? You need it on against teams like West Ham, who are going to be crossing into the box. You need it against set-piece teams. I think Konate and Verge have been huge on set pieces for most of the year. I think you're still going to see – I mean, obviously Gakpo's up there. You have players that are decent enough, like, to make up for size and that. Like, in the midfield, it doesn't bother me because – I watched our shortest and smallest midfielder boss people around all year in McAllister. And he
also
consistently
scored two
bangers,
which is ridiculous for itself. That McAllister, I think, was tied for the number of headed goals this season with Virgil.
Yeah, because, I mean, Cersei says we had Mane, Bobby, and Mo, but I would argue, I guess, more than the size parts, I mean, Mane was actually good in the air. Like, Mane would win all the headers. I mean, for a little guy, he had the jump and he would win. And Bobby as well, they had a lot of, like, you know, like headers and that as well. But, I mean, Mane could get up there. I mean, there's a lot of times as an attacker, he would challenge a center back and he would win the ball. So,
but I think Gakpo is good in the air. You know, he loves a header.
I'm just saying that's the only guy you're kind of left with now because Mo is not. He would rather not head the ball at all, it feels like. I mean, Wirtz, that's not really his strength. Frimpong is not the biggest dude. Kerkez has body, but you're basically using those guys' pace more than size. Szoboszlai has the size, but not the accuracy with the headers as we.
Well, listen, Gravenberch is going to get up there, and you're going to have Szoboszlai and McAllister and Wirtz probably sitting around the outside of the box waiting for something to pop out and shoot from range.
I mean, like I say, I'm just playing devil's advocate because I do like that setup, Gally, because what I do like is it's hard to defend because you don't know who's going to be making those runs because we're forgetting Szoboszlai, McAllister, and then Gravenberch as well, who can make those runs while you're worried about where Mo went to, where Wirtz went to is freaking Frimpong and Kerkez are doing overlap and stuff like that. But, I mean, how do you envision – what do you think the sales pitch was to Wirtz?
Well, I want to be honest. I think the first sales pitch was – the man got on the line, was Dutch and direct. So he just came straight with what it was. And he basically was like, you do things no one at this club can do. And we need them. And within 2 years, we're going to build the whole thing around you. And by the way, I have one question for you. You know the old interview thing? And then you ask them a question? His question for Wirtz was, tell me what Bayern told you they were going to do when you asked that same question to them. And Wirtz went, and Schlatt knew, like, I have him. Because to me, that's the difference. It was, you do things nobody here does. We have been looking for you for years. We had this kid, he had floppy hair. We loved him. He wanted to go to a Spanish team. But, like, we had to change our system because he didn't work half as hard as you. This kid does the running, does the pressing, has good numbers, and creates, scores goals, and can go multiple levels better when he starts playing with better players. I think the difference was they have Musala, they have Elise, they still have Harry Kane. Those are literally three positions that Arne Schlatt could say, in our side, you'd be the best player at those three positions for us. And I think that was the big difference. And I think it was his ability to articulate it. That's what I think the message was. Like, the kid seems like such a grounded, centered young man with, like, great head and great leadership and good parents. Like, Liverpool is the perfect club for him because they met him at the perfect time. He wants to take the next step in his career. He may not play for us for the 10 or 15 years. I hope he does. But if he plays for us for 7 of them and they're amazing, and then he goes somewhere else, goes to Bayern, goes to Madrid, goes wherever the hell he chooses, it'll be fine. Because I think this is the perfect spot. And I think he was convinced Arne Slot's the perfect manager to make him that player he wants to be a half a decade or a decade from now. And I think that was what the pitch was.
SSB says versus listed at 5'10". I don't know. That sounds like, how I.
That's a lie. I'm listed.
That's like how I
I'm
present my
listed.
height going around.
I was just gonna say I'm listed at 5'9" right now, and I'm still 2 inches taller than both of them, who are also listed at 2 inches shorter than they are.
We're pretty much all listed at 5'10" when you pull it up. 5'10", and the perfect weight is how we kind of like listed as. I don't know. I mean, it looks like it'll be a done deal, and it is pretty darn exciting. It's not only because of the potential, because this is kind of like building the future at the same time. I mean, obviously we talk about Mo, but 2 years, maybe 2 years, we don't know what's going to happen like next summer and stuff like that based on, will he have a drop off? Will he want to go then and all that kind of stuff? So this is really building the future over here. And it's a huge, huge investment, which is, I guess, my only concern. Well, 10s are tall for us. So that tells you everything you need to know, that we consider 5'10" tall. So that's all you need to know about her height. But yeah, I mean, I think what I like about Verse is the fact that, yeah, it's just a huge statement. By my concern again is I hope the price tag does not make a Nunez effect that we always like talk about with the incoming price tag and all that. But it goes back to like what Gally's saying. He does seem like a very well-established, level-headed dude that will kind of take it in the stride. And he's playing for Germany, not to mention he is German. So that by itself should kind of keep him like calm and down. And honestly, one of the biggest things I like is Frimpong is here. And you look at, I have still resisted. YouTube is just like knocking on the door, just like banging down the door saying, how about this verse highlight? You want to watch this YouTube video? And I'm not. I almost did yesterday, and she's like, don't. And I was like,
she kept just were you just staring longingly at the computer and she saw it up?
It's because you wouldn't.
She saw your finger hover over the mouse, and she's like,
you'd still be watching them in the hole, and she'd just be like, your bloodshot eyes, you have to host this show.
I mean, no, like, how you put the thing over, you get the first 5 seconds or whatever on the TV. So it was there. I was like, and like, started like he's scoring. I started like drooling, and she's like, no, down. Like, so I was like, damn it. Okay. But I do get to see the Frimpong videos because now that's official. And the thing, Bickler, that's exciting is a lot of those balls that are being sent in front of Frimpong to chase are coming from Wirtz. How big of an advantage is that, you think, in terms of kind of implementing Frimpong into this where no one knows where he will necessarily end up playing? Because he's not really like a right back. He's like a more right wing back. But it's not like the guys sent to Madrid was a right back either. Yeah, right. It was almost like a midfielder wannabe playing right back. So it's not like we're losing Carvajal and replacing him with Frimpong. Which, by the way, is what Real is doing.
Well, I would say, and I would say if you want to play a back four with only 3 defenders, you better have done that previously for like a decade. And we have. So, I mean, I think when we look at it, I think, like I said, I think this is going to look different when we're in possession, but I think it definitely is helpful. Like, listen, like a player like that changes what you do when you, like, both him and Kerkez are absolute pace monsters. Right. And I think even if you had one of those, you would have to account for that kind of pace on top of looking at like a player like Mo and a guy like that running behind it. So, 2 of them, I think that completely changes the complexion of what you want to do tactically. And I think like it certainly helps that you're bringing in, like if you're bringing in Wirtz, I think that like, hey, having your best mate already doing a medical certainly helps that conversation. It also helps you when you look at what you want to do tactically, because you now have a proven track record. You have a litmus. You have like a blueprint of what has and hasn't worked between these 2 players.
I mean, that's the thing that excites me the most. I mean, and there is pace to kill, which I really thought, and that's why, like, normally if we were losing Diaz, and that conversation came up that we had earlier, I would be a lot more worried because it felt like he's the only really top pace guy that we have there right now as a winger. And that's where we lack him in like speed, really. And with this injection, I mean, if you do get Kerkez, which we'll talk about next, but if you do get Kerkez as well, I mean, on top of that, we have Frimpong, Wirtz as pace as well. I mean, you're suddenly making this attack a lot more dangerous. Kevin says, don't buy anyone over 25. I don't know. You probably came up with that 25, Kevin, because you don't want us to come over to Crystal Palace and take any of those players over there. They're all must be 25 or something like that.
Truth is, Edwards made that post that Kevin just threw up on our screen about 5 years ago, and he hasn't looked at a player over 25 since. So, like, it's one thing to get talked into either by the player or your supporters to actually sign a player that you have already, like Virgil and Mo, after the age, because it makes sense. But they haven't targeted a player over the age of 25 in a while. That was really something that Edwards, especially Hughes, and what Hughes was doing at Bournemouth was the same thing, which was bringing in 19 to 23-year-old like top-end talent. So thank you, Kevin. We appreciate you, and congratulations again to Crystal Palace on winning the FA Cup.
I actually watched, was that Ian Doyle? I can't remember the guy's name now. Like an interview with him talking about actually how, you know, they had to really convince FSG to go after, I think, Van Dijk at the time, in terms of like players that are over like 24, that they 24 actually was their mark, not even 25. It was 24
for 5-year contracts or more.
Yes,
that was the thing.
And that's I mean, you kind of like listen to that and you kind of get the mindset. And honestly, as a fan, or like, you know, if you play FIFA, what have you, it doesn't sound very appealing. But in terms of like a plan that works long term, as we can kind of see, it's very sustainable, and it's no wonder that, you know, you keep churning out, you know, like the good moves. But let's talk about this over here. So this is actually on our Facebook page right now. So if you want to go place your votes anywhere from real deal to bullshit and any older numbers in between. The Kerkez thing, obviously with the Wirtz thing, this was like one of the biggest things, Bickler. It was Wirtz. I mean, it was Kerkez and Frimpong. We're getting right back, left back and stuff. Once Wirtz came up, you know, nobody cared about Kerkez anymore. So it's still happening in the background, is what like is being reported. Where are you? What number did you put on this from real deal to bullshit?
Yeah, I'll put it at a 2. I think there's too much smoke here. This is a player that I know that this club has looked at for a long time and we've talked about for a long time. I think the connection with Hughes and, you know, obviously the relationship with Soboslai and, you know, what he said, I think there's just way too much smoke here for this not to happen.
See, that's exactly what scares me, Gally. Because whenever there's this much smoke, it feels like it does not happen.
I don't disagree, except for the fact that there have been reports by like some of the best reporters in England, including Paul Joyce, who is basically like a mouthpiece of FSG. Like he might as well just be hanging out in the Edwards Hughes corridor and just picking up the stuff they drop out. Like they're like, we're going to sign this guy. They basically said the personal terms are already done. And again, this is kind of a kid who said, I want to go there. And Liverpool doesn't seem to balk at Bournemouth's price. So I feel like now it might even be one of those things where they told Bournemouth, like, we know this is done. It'll be done before June 10th. But let us finish this Wirtz thing. It's really important. And it's taking all of the billable hours our lawyers have. Like right now, we can't talk about that helmet of a head. Like, and I think it's great. My favorite part about this is I think we're going to sign Wirtz, Frimpong, Kerkez, and a couple more players. And I think the middle of next season, there's going to be thousands of kids across Liverpool rocking out with Hungarian helmet mullets, because I think this kid could immediately land as a star. Like, I think he does everything right. He looks Liverpool. He kind of sounds Liverpool. He acts Liverpool. Like, I think he's going to just create. I saw a couple balls he had at the end of the season. Like, he has a wand of a left foot. We joke as a club how we don't have a single player on the team that can take a set piece. We're about to get a guy who can take a set piece with a left foot. Like, He's so talented, and unlike the current left back, who I love and idolize in some ways as like the epitome of the club, if this kid is 18 yards from goal and has a shot on it, the net might rip. And it's the difference.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a bigger goal threat. Like, I mean, he drives up and down like Robertson, but he's definitely a lot more dangerous in there. SSB, he is in the camp right now, so I assume so because they're in camp. But there's like all kinds of games. I know, like, well, Turkey has come in here, people. Heads up, it's gonna be in a city. Nobody's coming, but that's a different story. Everybody's already bailing. Apparently, America is not a great tourist destination anymore because usually they'll be like, you know what, that's fine. Let's go there, play a couple.
Yeah,
of
I was gonna say, have your paperwork in order, folks.
First of all, people, if you want to come to America and play a football match, the best spot is not Hartford, Connecticut. Because if you have to come to Hartford, Connecticut, you might as well, and I don't mean this in any way rudely, stay the fucking Turkey.
Yeah, because I know already I saw like 4 or 5 players today who are not going to be coming and stuff, but it'll be shits and giggles. It's just a friendly. Dara says, I remember, Dara's old school. When we saw, you know what the funny thing is? Fun fact, in one of those YouTube holes I fell into, since I was like kind of like dodging the Wirtz videos, I ended up actually seeing highlights from Dalglish's very first game with the Liverpool jersey. So that was interesting. So before we go, let me ask you guys this. When we meet again, we expect these because of like the tournament coming up and some like teams, especially like the Saudi teams and stuff like that, want to take care of business before the tournament. So we do expect these next week to 2 weeks to be ridiculously fast and before the tournaments. I'll start with you, Gally. By this time, when we go on air next week, who will be new Liverpool players? And who will not be new Liverpool players? Just give me a quick list.
Wirtz will be here. Kerkez will be here. Sadly, Diaz will be gone. And potentially Nunez, because Saudi wants any player that could play in the Club World Cup to be within their ecosystem before the 10th of June.
Bigler, you agree? I'm pretty much like dead on with that list, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that list. I also would not be surprised to see Harvey Elliott join that list, as much as that would sadden a lot of people.
Yeah, it would, but I think it's very similar to the Kelleher situation. Yep. The moment the Wirtz thing came out, I'm sure, you know, Elliott was like, "Oh, you gotta be shitting me," because I mean, he's already getting limited minutes. It's gonna be even less now. It's probably a move that's good for the kid as well. And if you really, you know, care about the kids, definitely, you know, you've got to kind of wish the best for him. And he's been part of great moments with this club. He's won everything with this club. So I mean, I would root for him anywhere he goes. He's that kind of a player. Same with Kelleher, really. But Dara says, liked and subscribed. Follow Dara. Whatever Dara does, everybody should do. Yes, all joking aside, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Welcome aboard. Yeah, if you're watching us, if you're not watching us, if you're listening to us, head on to YouTube, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. Because, people, we don't only talk Liverpool over here, but we give good music. Am I right, Bickler?
Oh, no, don't do it.
No, I mean, you're right a lot. I don't know about that one, though.
I'm pretty excited about this one. I really am. Didn't get to play it last week. I think this is a great way to end the show this week, playing this tune. Bring your dance shoes out. I know Sir Z in the comments has been waiting for this. The entire audience, because I've been teasing this for like a while now. But yeah, get ready to dance. Yes, Sir Z, the verse is going to be the list of your concerns once the music starts. You're not gonna care about verse coming in. But thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us today. We will be back same time next week over here, 7 o'clock. Otherwise, I will be back. That was which you couldn't tell which was a cartoon, which wasn't. But
that was a montage. That was just a, hey, is this David Coote? Hey, is this American Scouser?
But yeah, I'll be back Wednesday morning. But do not forget to tune in tomorrow night to the Premier League panel show. A lot of moves happening there. Will be interesting to see what the Brentford and Manchester United guys and all those guys say tomorrow. So do tune in for that, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. But enjoy the music. Thanks a lot for joining in, and we'll see you guys next time. I'll leave you guys with a great song and a great image to add to it. Take care.
Red flags flying, feel the beat. Oh yeah, the coppers singing, can't be beat. Let's go. Some Moose and Paul and Galley too. Oh yeah, on Monday pod, they bring the news. We're champions, we raise it high. Trophy shining in the sky. Liverpool, this is our day. Dancing out the red parade. Oh, way. Anfield roaring, streets alive. House beats pumping, we thrive. Scousers proud, the night is out.